In today's video, you are going to learn how to create a 3D website with interactions like this and scroll animations without writing a single line of code. I'm going to show you how to use the Spline library to get free 3D assets for your website. Then we are going to learn how to customize and add interactions to these 3D scenes. And then at the end, we are going to integrate this 3D scene that we created in Spline into Framer, which is a no-code website builder. Along the way, I'm going to give you a bunch of smaller tips and tricks for creating 3D websites, so make sure to watch the full video. My name is Nandi, this is Framer University, and let's get started. So here we are on the Spline website. As you can see, it is spline.design. But before we start, I want to tell you that you're going to find everything in the description. I'm going to give you the Spline project that we worked with, and I'm going to give you a remix for the Framer project as well, so you can dig into these projects individually if you didn't understand something. So yeah, make sure to go down to the description and check out those links. But yeah, here we are on the Spline.design website. And as you can see, Spline is a place to design and collaborate in 3D. You can easily integrate these 3D scenes into your websites without writing a single line of code, as I said. So if you scroll down, you can see that they also have this 3D embed here. As you can see, if you hover this bunny, it moves. So it also has these interactions, which is really cool. And if you scroll down, you can learn more about the app. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click see all examples, and I'm going to open the Spline library, because here you can find a bunch of free 3D scenes that you can just copy to your account and start using them. It is so easy to, get started with a new app by just remixing already created designs or 3D scenes. So in this case, I wanted to find something that works well with a website hero, and I found this 3D paths scene. So I just clicked it and copied it to my account. And as I said, it is fully free, so you can find these 3D assets here and just copy them to your account, and you can use them anywhere basically. So as you can see, here we are in the Spline editor, and the scene is opened here. As you can see, this 3D modeling app is really friendly. So as you can see, we have a layers panel on the left side, we have a top toolbar, and then we have a right panel. So it's pretty similar to the apps that we probably already use. So first of all, I want to tell you a bit about how we can navigate in this 3D scene, because it's a bit different. There are three types of navigations. So you can first of all zoom in and out. I'm using touchpad, so I'm just pinching to zoom in and zoom out. And then I can also rotate the scene by pressing that option on my keyboard and then just clicking and dragging it around. This is how I rotate the scene. And then I can also press down space on my keyboard and just look around this way. So it is pretty easy to move around in this 3D space. And so now what I want to show you is how you can customize this scene to fit your needs. Because for example, if we take a look at the Framer project that I have opened right here, this is a dark website. It is using a black background. This is where we are going to integrate this 3D scene. So we need to optimize our scene to fit this type of style. So first of all, I can remove certain elements that I don't like, or I can change the colors as well. So for example, on the right panel, I can already see the BG color. I can change it to the BG color that I have on my website. But as you can see, there is a floor element that is like a separate layer. I can just click on it or find it on the layers panel because it is locked and I couldn't click it. But I can click it here and I can just delete it. But then you can also see that we have these lines here. So I'm going to find them somewhere here on the layers panel, but I cannot really see where these are. Here it is line. I can just delete them. So it is now much cleaner. So now we have this black background that we need. I'm going to also add fog here, so you can just click here to add fog, and I'm going to use the color that we have for the background, and we're going to use 470 and then 1700 for the far, so it has a little bit of a depth to the scene. Our button on the website might be somewhere here, and we want to ensure that we have enough contrast, so that's why I also added this fog. And you can do a bunch of more things here. You can add effects and all kind of things, but for now we will do these things. I'm going to also change the colors here for the different elements. And as you can see, if I, for example, click into this specific element, or let's say this is a light here, and you can see that it has a material. So if I click this material, I can change the color here to a different color, and you can see now the light is, red or maybe purple or pink. So it is pretty easy to change these materials as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click somewhere on this 3D scene to pull up this right panel, because this is the the default right panel. If I click into a specific element, then I will see the properties of that element on the right panel. But I'm going to click somewhere to deselect the current selection and then look at these little materials. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click into these materials and just modify them to change the colors of the scene. So for example, we have this main, and I can just change its color here to have a different color. But we also have this material library, which we can also use. So I'm gonna select all objects using this asset. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come here, press this button. And then as you can see, we have the Spline library here, and it has a bunch of different materials. So they also have these kind of metal looking materials. So I can just click on any of these, and as you can see now the color is changed. So let's find something that looks great here. Maybe this metal lines texture too could work well on those elements. And then I can again go to a different material. So here we have the main. I will again select all objects using this material, and then I'm gonna go here and search the Spline library to find a material that looks great. Metal, color, and shiny 3. I guess that looks really cool. And then we have this conveyor belt here, which is white. So I'm gonna find the material. I guess this white is, no, that's a different white. Maybe this blue. Yeah, this blue will be that. So I'm gonna select all elements using that material, and I'm gonna find something in the Spline library that looks better on that conveyor belt. So let's scroll down here. As you can see, I can just click around to see which one is the best for that specific object. I think this metal noise 2 or maybe the 4. Yeah, let's go with the metal noise 4. So now as you can see, some of these elements have changed in color, and I actually like that the rest of the things are having these colors because they give some accent colors to the scene, so it looks really cool. So now as you can see, we have customized our scene, and we can actually also click this little play button and just rotate it around and see how it looks in 3D, and it is pretty cool. So the next thing that we're going to do is actually has to do something with this little play that I just showed you, because as you can see, I can move around here, and then if I click play, then the play will start from the position that I'm in right now. So if I move here, then the play will look like this. And the thing is that if we export this scene, it will be in play mode. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that somehow this play mode has a starting position that we determine. So what we need to do here is we need to go here to viewport, and then we need to create a camera. As you can see, we already have a camera here, so we can just click that. If you don't have a camera, you can just add a new camera. And then if you select that camera, you can just drag it around and position it the way you want it to be. And then if you click play, you can see that the camera is not the one that is being shown in the play. That's probably because we need to adjust the play settings, because as you can see here, we need to change the camera to this camera, and we're gonna also change it here to camera, but we're gonna talk about export a little bit later. But so now if we adjust this camera here, maybe we move it to this position and we start the play mode, then we're gonna see this. If we move back the camera to this position somewhere around here, I'm gonna just zoom in a bit more, and then let's see how this looks. Looks pretty cool. And then what's good about this, that we can change back to personal camera, and we can move around with the personal camera, zoom in, edit the scene. But then when we go to the play, we will see the scene from the camera's viewpoint, which hasn't changed because we moved with the personal camera. So make sure when you just move around and edit the scene, make sure to be on the personal camera, and the the camera that you use for the play should be positioned the way you want to view the scene on your website as well. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna make sure that the camera looks exactly the way I want it to look. So I'm gonna just position this scene a bit towards the bottom. I'm gonna zoom out a bit and then take a look at the play. Maybe I'm gonna zoom in a bit more. Let's take a look at this now. Okay, it looks great. I'm gonna move this a bit towards the bottom. And yeah, something like this could work. But we can always adjust this later when we embed this scene into our framework website. So yeah, but for now this position I think works pretty well. So I'm gonna go and change back to personal camera so we can continue editing this 3D scene. So let's add our first interaction to the scene, which will be a look interaction, which will basically mean that if we go into play and we move around our cursor, this whole scene will look where the cursor is. So I'm going to just show you how that looks in a second. But in order to do that, I have to group this whole scene together. So this whole thing needs to be in a common group. So I'm gonna just collapse everything and then select all of these and just press Command and G on my keyboard. And I'm gonna call this everything. And then I'm gonna select this everything group. I'm gonna go to events, and here I'm gonna select the look interaction, yes, look at, and the plane distance will be 5000 and the damping will be 10, but you can play around with these values, and we're gonna use no reset. So if we take a look at this right now, you can see that this scene is following our cursor. So as I move around with my cursor, it is looking at it, which is pretty good. However, there's a small issue because now this scene is like looking at me, but I still want to be looking at it from, a bit from the side and from the top. So in order to, maintain this type of position that we see right now as well, I'm gonna use a trick that I came up with. This might not be the, the solution that you have to go with. I'm not an expert in Spline, but this is what I came up with. So what we're gonna do is we're going to go to the camera, because this is what we use for the play. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select this everything, and then I'm gonna rotate it so it looks exactly at the camera, like this. So now this is what we have. And then I'm gonna select all of the elements within the everything group, and I'll just make sure to rotate them back how they were. So just using these little controls and just rotating back it to the position I think this is approximately the position that we had. And now if we go into play, you can see that it works really well. We maintain our camera position, so we are looking at it from the top and a little bit from the side, but it still is following our cursor. I'm gonna make sure that this is a bit to the top. And yeah, this looks great. And I'm gonna go back to my personal camera so I can do some more things with this scene. Because the next thing that I'm gonna do is actually adding an interaction to make this 3D scene a bit cooler. And this interaction will be something really cool. So what I came up with is that here is this little button that you can see right here. So I was like, why not make an interaction with this button? So what we can do is we can, double click into this button, and we can go down to this cylinder. And as you can see, if I toggle it, you can see that it is definitely that little button that we need. And then we can go to states, and we can create a state for it, which will be down, because now it has a base state. This is its base state. And if we click the down state, we can, move it anywhere, make any modifications, and then this will be its down state. So now we have the base state and the down state. And then with interactions, we can, use these states to move the objects. So we can click events now while this cylinder is selected. And I'm gonna use mouse press. The trigger is of course on this object, and we're going to use a transition, and we're going to use the transition on this cylinder, and we're going to go from the current state to the down state, and we're going to use a bit slower transition. And basically that's it. Now we can go to play and take a look at this. And yes, as you can see, as I click this little button, it goes down. So it works really well. But what if I want to connect this interaction to something else? So what if I want to, press this button and make these logos on the conveyor belt elevate? I can easily do that. All I have to do is to go back to the cylinder. Or no, first I'm gonna actually select all these logos. So I'm gonna find them somewhere on this layers panel. This layer here is containing all of the logos. So, I can just elevate them like this, but I have to create, a state for it, as we did it for the cylinder as well, or the button. So I'm gonna create a state for it. We're gonna call this up, and then I'm gonna just move them up, and that's it. That's how easy it is. So we have now a base state and an up state for these little logos. So now if we go back to the cylinder, we can go to events, because we already have this mouse press event on this cylinder. And all we have to do is to add another action, which will be a transition, and the transition will happen on the logo. And we're gonna transition them from the current state to the up state, and the same length. So now if we take a look at this, as I click this button, the button goes down, and then the logos elevate. And the scene is still following my cursor, so it's pretty cool. So another thing that we can do is we can do scroll animations as well with Spline. So I'm gonna create a scroll animation for the logo. So I'm gonna click the logos, and then I'm gonna add an event here, which will be scroll. And I'm gonna use not steps but scroll, and yes, we're gonna use entire view, and we're gonna use the bottom of the canvas, so it will start this animation when it reaches the bottom of the canvas. We can keep this on 400. This basically determines the length of the scroll animation. And then we add a transition, and of course we're gonna transition from the current state to the up state, and this transition here can stay 1. So now if we take a look at this, as I start scrolling here, it moves around like this. This is because in the play settings, we probably have to turn off orbit, pan, zoom, and soft orbit. And now as you can see, as I start scrolling, these logos are elevating nicely and I can no longer click to rotate the scene. It will just stay fixed, follow the cursor, and do all the different interactions that we want it to do. So it's pretty cool. Now we can actually go and export this scene into Framer. So if we click this export button, you can see that we have all these different options for exporting. We can use a public URL, we can use viewer, we can use code export and all these things. But what we're going to use is the viewer embed, because that is the only export option that supports our scroll animation. So if you have a scroll animation on your Spline scene, make sure to use the viewer embed, because that's how it's gonna work on your website. So as you can see, we have this overview here. We can copy the embed from here, but I'm gonna just run through these different settings. So of course, we're gonna show the main scene here. We're going to use the camera because we already positioned it nicely. We can show or hide the Spline logo on the Spline embed that we see on the website if we embed it on our Framer website. I'm going to turn off this logo because I don't want to show the Spline logo there. You can only turn this off if you are on a paid plan. But if you take a look at Spline's pricing, it is pretty affordable. So if you go this pricing, you can see that if you pay yearly, it is just $7 per month. So I think that's fairly affordable. You can turn on loading animations or things like that. And here is a really important part, the performance test. So you can run this test and see how well your scene is optimized. If you see green circles here, that means that everything is cool. But if you see that maybe the size is too big or the loading score is not really good, then you can go down here and do some of these suggestions that they give you to reduce polygons and stuff like that. But now we're not going to do these because our scene is already optimized. But if we wanted to make it even more optimized, we could do all these different things, reduce the number of objects and stuff like that. But make sure that your scene is nicely optimized, because otherwise it will not really work well within a website. So that's the performance test. But then we also have play settings that we can play around with. As I said, I usually turn off these orbiting options, orbit, pan, zoom, soft orbit, all those are set to no, but in some cases you might want those on your embed. Then we can also customize the touch settings, so how this will, behave when it is on a mobile device. I'm gonna turn off the zoom here, and I'm gonna also disable the pan and orbit. And then we can also change the compression mode. I think this is really important. I usually like using performance because that way we can make sure that our scene will be really, really well optimized. So now we can update the viewer, and I think we can actually copy the embed, but there is one little thing that I want to give you as a tip. Because here the frame size needs to be responsive. So if it is a fixed size or something like that, make sure that it is responsive, because otherwise it will not work really well within the browser as an embed. So make sure that it is responsive, so it will nicely adapt to different width changes. So yeah, now we can update the viewer and then just copy this embed from here. And then we're gonna go to Framer, and then as you can see we have this hero section here. I'm gonna give you this website, by the way, this little starter file, so you can also just play around with it. It's nothing special, it's just a hero section and just a placeholder section under that, so we can scroll a bit. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna hit I on our keyboard, search for embed, and just drag and drop this embed on the canvas. And then I'm going to Command X, so cut it from there and paste it within the hero section. And here I'm going to make sure that it is absolutely positioned, and all these pins are activated so it fills up the available space. Then I'm going to also make sure that the Z index is removed, and I'm going to move it here to the top so it will be behind everything else. And now all we have to do is to change this embed from URL to HTML and just paste in the code that we copied from here. I'm going to copy it again because something else was copied to my clipboard in the meantime. So now, as you can see, we have pasted this in. And as you can see, if I change the viewport of this website, it works really well on smaller viewports as well. But you know, maybe I want to make sure that on a mobile device, this whole scene is scaled down so we can see a bit more of it. So in order to do that, we can go back to Spline. And what we're going to do here is we're going to select the everything, because as you remember, we have a group that contains everything within the scene. We're going to add an event, and this event will be the screen resize event. And on mobile, which will be 810 pixels, because that's the breakpoint that we use in Framer as well, as you can see here, 810. And we can specify a transition here. So what will happen when we reach this viewport size? So this will basically activate when the viewport is smaller than 810 pixels, and the transition will be transition everything, and we're gonna go from current, and we actually need to create a state for it. So I'm gonna create a state, we're gonna call this mobile, and then I'm gonna make sure that it is scaled down. I'm gonna lock this scale and just write 0.65 so it is nicely scaled down now. I'm gonna change back to base state, so that's what we are looking at, and then screen size, and from current to mobile. So when we reach the mobile breakpoint, it will basically scale down. So now I'm gonna again update the viewer and get the embed to my clipboard, and then I can just go to the primary breakpoint and replace the code. And now if I go to preview mode in Framer, you can see that as I start resizing the viewport, you can see that here the whole scene gets smaller. So it is responsive and it works really well. As you can see, it follows the cursor. If I click the button, the logos elevate. And if I start scrolling down, the logos elevate again. So now all we have to do is to publish this website on a free Framer subdomain. So all we need to do is to click publish. And now it is already published for me on a custom domain. But what you can do here is you can go to the settings, and what you can do is you can go to general tab, and sorry, not the general tab, but the domains. And here you're going to be able to, I'm going to show it to you, add a free Framer subdomain. So maybe something. And as you can see, now the website is live on this domain. So as you can see, it works really well. If I scroll down, the logos elevate, and then if I click the button, the logos elevate again. And it is our website on the web on our custom subdomain. So that's how you create a 3D website with interactions without writing any code. Don't forget that I have the Framer project remix link in the description, and also the Spline scene that we used. So you can just click those in order to, take a look within the files. I also have a free course coming out on Framer, so go to framer.university if you're interested in that and join the waitlist, or if it's already out, enjoy learning. That's it for this video. Make sure to like it and subscribe for more, and I'm gonna see you in the next one.